Am I the a-hole for canceling my niece's college fund upon discovering what she's been doing to me and my wife for months? My wife and I struggled with infertility for years. We're still trying more options, but we're beginning to lose hope. I have a 16-year-old niece that is like a daughter and a friend to me. Considering I'm doing well financially, I've decided to take care of her education and start a college fund so she could attend a college of her choice. My brother and his wife, my niece's stepmom, are of course aware of that, and they appreciate it very much. They always talk about what a generous, loving uncle I am, like my younger brother. I've been dealing with a series of unusual, unexplainable events, like receiving texts at work from someone pretending to be my wife, informing me of some big news like her being pregnant, or finding mysterious envelopes in my car when I'm at my parents', and the envelopes contained letters from someone also pretending to be my wife, and again telling me she was pregnant. My wife and I had no idea who's been playing us like that. We knew it was someone close, and had many that made our suspect list, including my brother-in-law. Last week, I was visiting my brother's house and my car was parked in their driveway. I was sitting with my brother and sister-in-law when my niece left for a few minutes, then returned. I finished my coffee and said goodbye and left. While I was approaching my car, I noticed a sign on the windshield. I took a look, and the sign read, "I'm pregnant," written largely. I was confused because I knew no one from this neighborhood, and suspected someone who knew me did it. I called my wife, and she again said this was false news. I took the sign and went back to my brother's house to help figure this out. He said someone must have left it in the wrong car, but I explained it happened before. He just shrugged. But sister-in-law pointed at the sign and said the writing looked similar to my niece's writing style. My brother told her to stop, but I called my niece to come downstairs and ask her. She denied, but got nervous and admitted leaving the sign on my windshield, as well as sending/leaving letters and texts pretending to be my wife. But didn't have ill intent, just did it for laughs. I blew up, telling her she was out of line to think mocking mine and my wife's suffering and playing us for months was funny. I said I was mad, and that I was disappointed and won't ever look at her the same. I informed her, my brother and sister-in-law, that I officially canceled the college fund I started for her due to her cruelty and disrespect for us. She broke down saying she meant no harm or disrespect, and was just messing with/teasing me. My brother said I can't actually make this decision based on small mistake my niece made. He said this is her future that I was giving up on, and my decision will have a lasting impact. I cut the conversation and left after he tried to talk me out of giving her this harsh punishment. But to me, this was no punishment. Just realizing she didn't deserve my hard-earned money. Brother said I exaggerated, and he actually thinks punishing her by taking away electronics and having her do work around the house should be enough punishment, not canceling the fund I started for her. But I already told him canceling the fund was not a punishment, but a reaction from me upon finding out what she's been doing for over 2 months. Now for the top comments. Not a hole, but it probably wouldn't hurt if you sent her a few mysterious texts that said, "You won a scholarship," just for laughs. I'd love that. Maybe then she'll learn that saying "I meant no harm" means jack, after months of causing harm. Not a hole, and your brother has no right to demand your money for anything. In what world would she believe this was funny? Why would you think that? Brother's immediate reaction of trying to shut down stepmom makes me think he was more aware of what was happening than has been let on. I thought the same thing. He had to know what was going on to deny and try to redirect so quickly. I get teens can be malicious, but it just seems weird for a teen to go this way when she's clearly close to both of them. So how much influence has her dad had on her actions? His reaction just makes me think something more is afoot. Not a hole. Put the money towards fertility treatments, or whatever path you chose. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for taking back the money I promised my daughter for her trip after she refused to watch her younger siblings for the evening? My daughter Zoe, 17, has been planning a trip with her friends for weeks and asked for my wife's and my help with money. I promised her that I'll be paying for her part of the trip, which is about $80 from stuff she needs for the trip, food and other expenses. Zoe appreciated this a lot since she normally pays for trips and other fun things with her own money, but she left her summer job not too long ago. 2 days ago was my wife and I's wedding anniversary. We planned to go out and celebrate in the evening, and I asked Zoe if she could watch her younger siblings, 3 and 9, while we're out. She said, "Sorry, I have plans for tonight," I asked her to elaborate, and she said she wanted to meet her best friend at a party before she leaves town, as her friend will be moving away this month. She suggested we get a babysitter, but it was already late for me to call and arrange for a babysitter. My wife suggested calling my sister, but my sister has enough on her plate to be watching our kids. I tried to convince Zoe to skip going out and watch her brothers, but she refused, and said my wife and I could stay home and celebrate. But I told her we already reserved a table at a restaurant. I was getting pissed and brought up the trip that I was paying for, and told her I would take the money back if she refused to watch her brothers for the evening. She said no, so I told her no trip then, unless she gets the money herself because I'm no longer paying for it. She screamed at me, calling me unbelievable for taking money back just because she wanted to attend her best friend's goodbye party and not wanting responsibility for her brothers. I refused to discuss it. I took the kids to my mother's house and left. My wife said I was too harsh on Zoe, especially since it's not her fault she doesn't want to be responsible for her brothers for the evening. I was puzzled. I told her it's just one evening. But still my wife thought I punished Zoe over nothing by taking the money I promised for her trip. Zoe isn't speaking to me, just cold-shouldering me because of this. Edit. I just checked the comments and some were asking why I notified her last minute. The answer is because I assumed she'd be home like usual, so I never thought of needing to get a sitter. You're the a-hole. 2 points. Firstly, if the $80 gift had a strings attached, you ought to have made that clear from the onset. Introducing conditions retroactively sets the precedence that your gifts aren't really gifts at all, but tools used to manipulate and control. Secondly, you ought to have provided your daughter with sufficient notice, so that she can plan her schedule. What you did shows that you have zero respect for her time, and that you expect unquestioning obedience from her. Zero respect and expecting unquestioning obedience. That's OB in a nutshell. Complete a-hole. She suggested we get a babysitter, but it was already late. So it's too late to call a babysitter, but it's fine to not give your daughter any notice? You're the a-hole. Your daughter makes plans like you do, and deserves some notice if you want her to babysit. Respect this. Also, OB reserved a table. If he had time to reserve a table, he had time to either get a babysitter or give enough notice to his daughter. Your poor planning skills is not the fault of your daughter. She had plans, and you acted like a child when dealing with her. You're the a-hole. Clearly you had other options, because you took them to your mother's house. This is a joke, right? Yeah, you're the a-hole. Doesn't even sound like you asked in advance or tried to find a sitter at all. You waited until the last second when you felt she would have no option but to say yes. She called you on your nonsense, and now you were pissed about it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not forcing my daughter to spend the night at her bi-dad's house? I, 36 female, have a daughter, Lucy, 10. She was not quite 2 yet when I divorced her father, Larry, 40. There were many reasons. Firstly, he would claim to be taking money from our account to pay bills, yet every single bill was delinquent. He would check the mail and hide the shut-off notices. He was never able to explain what he was doing with our money. Also, I'd work all day to come home to my daughter in a dirty diaper, alone in her nursery, while he sat around playing video games all day. Anyway, I decided it was best for all of us to divorce. I've been with Lucy's stepdad, Thomas, 35, for almost 4 years now, and he is the only other man I've had around her. We are all very amicable, though. I've never brought her bi-dad to court for child support, as I agreed to handle it privately. Same with custody. She lives with Thomas and I full-time. Larry's supposed to pick her up Saturday night, and we would pick her back up Sunday by noon. He has a history of canceling on her for various reasons. Concerts, baseball games, anything under the sun. He was doing well for a while where he wouldn't cancel, until he met his most current girlfriend, Dolores, 33. Dolores has a 12-year-old daughter, Erin, who she believes Larry should prioritize over Lucy. Anytime Lucy does go to their house, Dolores is very cold and unkind to Lucy, and she purposely excludes her. They rent a 3-bedroom house, yet when Lucy is there, she is forced to sleep on a love seat. They did not bother to get her a proper bed in her own space. There was even a time when Dolores and Larry were driving home with Lucy and Erin and went through Wendy's drive-thru. They got Erin a meal and a drink. When Lucy told them what she wanted, they told her no, that she can have something at their house like cereal. Larry and Dolores have an incredibly toxic, codependent relationship. Dolores has been fired from 4 jobs within a year. Larry hasn't had a car in about 5 years, so he's completely reliant on her car to get to his job. Neither can afford to live on their own, and Lucy says they fight constantly. She no longer enjoys being there. A combination of Larry constantly bailing on her to how nasty Dolores is has made her not want to go. Not for overnights at least. She loves her dad, and we do have an amicable relationship 90% of the time. But his failure to stand up to Dolores is starting to cause issues. I've told him Lucy does not feel welcome there, and I refuse to force her to go if she doesn't want to. I would never stop her from going, but I will not force her either. He says she's 10, and Thomas and I are a-holes for basically letting Lucy make this decision on her own. So, am I the a-hole for leaving this decision up to my child? Now for the comments. Not an a-hole. They are treating your daughter badly. If your daughter doesn't want to go, she has good reasons. You are just trying to protect your daughter. You're Rex as the a-hole. Did he even try to deny the Wendy's incident or her sleeping arrangements? Nope. He tries to justify it. He said Erin was hungry from her soccer game and needed dinner. Which, are you kidding me? And he just says, oh, we're getting her a bed soon. Which he's said this for over a year. So it's one reason I told him she's no longer to spend the night there. And the fact that she doesn't have her own space is becoming increasingly important the older she gets. She's 10. What's he going to do when she's 12? Or older? This is not a 4-year-old. He is quite a douche, and so is Dolores. Thomas and I say the same thing. What is he going to do when she's 12? 13. It's just ridiculous. Get her a pull-out futon for Christ's sake. Anything better than a love seat. Not today, Hall, but go to court and get full custody and child support. No court would allow Lucy at her dad's house unless he has a bed for her. I'm in favor of amicable co-parenting relationships, but not fighting him about this may hurt Lucy in the long run. You need to do everything you can to make sure Lucy's dad is accountable as a parent, because right now, he is being enabled to be a terrible father. He clearly isn't taking that initiative on his own. Not today, Hall. 10-year-olds deserve to set their own boundaries. That sounds like a horrible situation, and I think you're doing the right thing not forcing her. If Larry can't get it together, he's going to be very confused when Lucy turns 18 and goes completely no contact. Also curious, it sounds like drug-related at the beginning? Could that be a contributing factor now? I've considered the substance issue thing regarding the money. I do have suspicions at the time that he was abusing prescription pain meds, but could never prove this, which is one of my reasons for ending it. I've never seen anything as of late since the divorce that leads me to think he is abusing still. However, I do constantly keep my eyes open. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for saying I don't want to do gifts anymore with my family because they come with conditions that I only find out about later? My parents have a habit of giving a gift and then later adding conditions on. I'll give a couple examples. I got a gift card for them all at Christmas. Thought it was just a gift. But then weeks later, I've had made plans of how to spend the money. Sports gear. My parents said the first thing I needed to buy was school supplies for the spring. Then I could use the rest on fun stuff. Then after that, I need to buy clothes for school to replace the clothes I thought were fine. But then I could spend the rest on myself. After they made me buy all that, nothing was left. I felt like all I got for Christmas was the hassle of being made to go out and buy things I don't want. When I get gifts for my birthday, my parents held it over my head, like to say that on a family vacation I'd be the childcare for my siblings, nieces, and nephews. Or else they'd take back the phone and hockey gear got as a gift. When I asked for money for a school trip, my parents gave it to me, but then told me a month later that I had to miss a game to help my dad with housework, to repay them for paying for the trip. I find it frustrating when a gift comes with a secret conditions that I don't find out till weeks or months later. It feels less like a gift and more like a favor to call in later, or something told over my head. So when my birthday was coming up this year, my mom asked me what I wanted, and said I'd rather skip gifts with a family. My mom asked me why, and I told her that I think gifts, at least the way our family has done them, are more stressful than nice. It seems like they treat gifts as something with conditions but aren't clear what those conditions are when they're offering a gift. So then it feels like signing a contract that I wasn't allowed to read when I accept a gift. I have no idea what I'll owe, and for the next few weeks or months, I'll be waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then I told her I'd rather skip the family party and the gift giving and just do something chill with my friends. My mom was upset with me, saying stuff about tradition and how she doesn't do that I was cherry-picking frustrations when most gifts aren't like that. I said that I felt like it was more often than not. She told my dad about the conversation, and he was really upset with me, saying I was being ungrateful, and that when I was living under his roof, there were going to be conditions. Can't just go do whatever I want whenever. I said, okay, but I'd rather not have those conditions be linked to gift giving and holidays, because it makes holidays an unpleasant time for me. And that he can have rules, but he can't make anyone take a gift if they've decided they don't want to accept gifts. I was grounded for talking back like that. Am I the a-hole for having told my parents no birthday gifts? Not the a-hole. If they insist on giving gifts anyway, just put them to the side. And when they give you the surprise condition, give them the gift back. It will happen. My in-laws were that way. But I don't think that would make Opie any happier. He gives the money back that he doesn't want to buy school supplies and clothes with, and they'll buy him the school supplies and clothes. Because guess what? He needs them. He gives them the money back for the school trip. And now he can't go on a school trip that he clearly wants to go on because he asked for the money. Better advice would be to get a job, so his parents can give him the money for the school supplies that he can pay for his own school trip. I would be a lot happier because at least things would be predictable. The most frustrating thing about the gift as one half of a bargain, but you don't know what bargain that will be until much later, is the anxiety of waiting for the other shoe to drop. At least that would be predictable. I don't go on the trip, I don't get school supplies, but I also don't get some unpleasant surprise about what I later owe as repayment for the gift. Not day home. You got grounded because they were called out on their BS and they had nothing else to reply with. They retaliated instead. If you don't want gifts or parties, that's your choice. It's your birthday. And if they hold parties and gifts over your head as favors, they are more loan sharks than parents. First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not taking my wife to the hospital? My wife has a playful personality. She tease/mock/laughs at me all the time. Everywhere. During dinner, in the bathroom, at work, when we're intimate, and in public too. No matter how serious the situation is, she'd always crack a joke to lighten up the mood. I found this both great and annoying, as certain situations require us to be serious. I quite frankly don't know the reason behind her behavior. My sister suggested that it might be a way for her to cope with past traumatic events like her brother's death. He passed away before we met, and understand how hard this is. We have a 5-year-old who's pretty much like his mother. We gave him the nickname Clown because of how he's always laughing and telling jokes and dressing funny. We don't call him that in public though. She just gave birth to our second baby, and ever since she got pregnant, it got worse. Even worse in the past month. She's at home while I work long hours. Every other day, she'd call me during work to ask me something, then suddenly started freaking out telling me the water broke and I needed to get home fast. She's done it twice and recorded our call to listen to it with her sisters and laugh at my reaction. It made me look bad for lying to my employer and telling him my wife went into labor twice. I'd come up with excuses telling him that there was a mistake or something but never tell him my wife lied for the lulz. Saturday. I was out working and meeting up with some clients in an area 2 hours away from home. It's a project we've been working on and the 2 clients wanted to see it. Suddenly, my phone started ringing. It was my wife. I looked at it and thought that she was at it again and tried to be funny telling me she went into labor. I put my phone on silent. Then I got a text from her telling me that I needed to get home to take her to the hospital, but I just quickly replied telling her to stop. This wasn't a time for messing around, I had a lot of work. And driving 2 hours just to find she was just kidding was not okay. But in about 30 minutes, I got a call from her sister calling me names for ignoring my wife's calls, and that she ended up driving her to the hospital herself. I was shocked. I left work and drove more than 2 hours to get to the hospital. My wife saw me and cussing me out and telling me to get out. I wasn't allowed in the delivery room. And her mother insulted me, asking me how I could leave my wife home alone and not answer her calls. I felt awful already. I wasn't allowed to see our baby until 10. The entire family called me neglectful a-hole and said I deserve what I got. My parents said I was in the wrong, although I explained that I didn't know. My wife keeps saying I had no right to complain about not being in the delivery room after I ignored her like that and made her feel helpless. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Buy her the story The Boy Who Cried Wolf for her to read to the new baby. Maybe the baby can read to her instead. Given how childish Opie's wife is being, are we sure she's past first grade? Not the a-hole. Your wife doesn't have a playful personality. She's a bully, and an a-hole who uses your emotional state and lies to you for her own amusement. I like this, yes. Not the a-hole. And you nailed this person correctly. Hard not the a-hole. Jesus Christ, this is the story of the boy who cried wolf. Or the woman who cried baby, I guess? This was entirely an incident of her own making. It is her fault. Yet, Opie is the one dealing with all the consequences once again. Opie just missed the birth of his child because of her actions. I'd be freaking livid with her. Opie's income, I imagine their joint income as she's just had a baby, was threatened repeatedly by her lies. All to humiliate her husband for her own amusement as a bully. Honestly, at this point I want to fight fire with fire and have Opie tell his wife that he lost his job because of his wife's BS pranks. Tell wife that his boss told him that if it was another false alarm, he was losing his job, and when he left to go to the hospital to see her, he did lose his job. See how funny she finds it losing her income when she has a newborn because of her actions. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole if I don't allow my son in family photos? I, 30 female, have been together with my husband, 30 male, for 15 years and have been married for 7 years. We have had 2 instances where I have been excluded from family photos. The first time was when we were engaged and my husband's grandmother, 73 female, wanted to take photos of everyone for the holidays. When I situated myself next to my then fiancé, she said, "Let's take some photos of the biological family first." What followed was 30 minutes of different arrangements of family members while I sat off to the side because I was the only non-biological grandchild there. They took iterations that included spouses of aunts and uncles. They took a few photos with me at the end, but everyone was exhausted, so they didn't come out good. The photos that are on display at the grandmother's house are the photos without me in them. When I expressed my frustration to my husband, he explained that his family wanted to ensure they got some sets of the real family first. His words. I explained how hurt I was to be excluded, and he said that it would not be an issue again because we were going to be married. I took this as a sufficient answer and dropped it. Flash forward to summer of 2019. My husband and I had been married for 5 years and were trying to conceive. We went on a trip with the whole family. They set up a legacy photo shoot. I brought up my fears of a repeat of last time to my husband, but he assured me that things were different now. We were married, we were trying to start a family. I was a member of the family. We took a bunch of photos and I was included in the applicable groups. They took the classic arrangements. Grandparents with grandkids, grandparents with aunts/uncles and grandkids, grandparents with only their birthed children, aunts/uncle generation, but no iterations where the spouses were left out if their kids were involved. When Grandma checked the photos, she said, "Let's try a few with just the biological grandkids." I began tearing up and said, "You mean without me?" My husband pulled me aside and explained that it was only going to be for a few pictures, and asked me why I was ruining the photo shoot that was going so well. After arguing for a few minutes, I conceded and walked away. Since then, his grandmother has displayed photos from that trip and I am in none of them. Also, since then, my husband and I have had a son, 1 male. I have told my husband that in the future we will have 2 choices. Either he tells his family that I'm staying in all of the pictures, or I leave and my son is also not in them either. My husband says that this isn't fair and causes him to have an uncomfortable conversation with his grandmother. Am I the a-hole here for not allowing my son to be in a family photo that I am obviously not welcome in? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. We took a bunch of photos and I was included in the applicable groups. The other spouses included were the aunts/uncle generation. I am the first spouse in the grandkids generation. Paraphrased from a reply from Opie. They were taking photos of the biological grandkids. You were not a biological grandkid. I'm sure that when they take pictures of the first great-grandkids, you will be in the applicable pictures as you already have been. You are attempting to assert yourself into a position you don't hold. Maybe grandma doesn't like you, maybe not. Maybe if you took a step back and examined your behavior to see if making things about you, when they aren't, is a pattern that may push her away, or maybe she is in fact the a-hole. But from what I'm reading here, I gotta read it as you're the a-hole. This is an excellent reply. I agree, you're the a-hole. The people who are voting not the a-hole are not realizing that OP wants to be included in photos because of their age, and not because of their position in the family, which is what the grandmother seems to be doing. You're the a-hole. You are literally throwing a temper tantrum that an old lady wants photos of her grandkids, but not you because you aren't her grandkid. So freaking what? Why OP would want to be in the picture of the biological grandkids is beyond me. You're not a grandkid. None of the grandkids' parents were in the pictures. And who obsesses about the pictures displayed in other people's houses? Who cares that much? Some old bat didn't include you in the pictures, and what? The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my in-laws into our home because that's what brother-in-law wanted? My brother-in-law, Jason, is 20, and 2 years ago he was in an accident that left him paralyzed. He's bound to a wheelchair and barely has any hand mobility, so he needs help with pretty much everything. My wife's parents were hit hard by this and struggled with the pressure of taking care of him. Even though he receives benefits and compensation, in-laws couldn't handle all the doctor's appointments, physical therapy sessions, and constantly caring for him. In the end, Jason came to live with us. Her parents claimed they just needed a few weeks to take a break from caring for him. A few weeks turned into months until he stayed with us permanently. There was a lot of conflict over this. We couldn't believe they just stopped coming to see him altogether, when he was already in a dark place and adjusting to these permanent life changes. We didn't speak with them for a long time. It was difficult to adjust at first, but we're glad he's here with us. Before COVID, we had a care provider stay with him while we were at work, but now that we're home majority of the time, we just take turns. He and I have gotten very close, so we've had many talks about his feelings. I know how hard this is for him and how much it hurt when my in-laws pulled out of his life. We haven't had any contact with them at all in over a year. Well, as it turns out, they want to see him again. My wife told me this could be the chance to finally get the family back together and to make amends. She's talked this over with Jason, but he wants nothing to do with them. He's made it clear he doesn't want to see them, but she insists it's important they all talk. Today, they showed up unexpectedly when my wife was out. Jason was in the other room, and apparently they arranged this meeting today with my wife, but got there earlier than the agreed time. They just wanted to have a sit-down with Jason, but I didn't let them set foot in the house. Honestly, my anger got the best of me, and I shut the door on them when they wouldn't leave. I told Jason they were here. He didn't want to speak with them. They left after 10 minutes. When my wife got home, she was furious. She knows what they did was bad, but this was the chance to make it better, and Jason doesn't know what's best for himself because he's still upset about what they did. We went back and forth on this. She said closing the door on them and refusing to let them see Jason was an a-hole move, but I feel his wishes should be respected. However, she says his feelings on this are obviously clouded because of what happened, and I prevented him from reconnecting with them in order to move on from the pain. So, I'm not sure, was I an a-hole here? Not the a-hole. Your brother-in-law absolutely does know what's best for his own emotional well-being. He shouldn't be forced to clear the air until he wants to do so. I completely agree, and Opie needs to have a serious conversation with his wife about her priorities. This was a planned ambush on her brother, and she was in on it. Not the a-hole. As someone with mobility issues from a spinal injury and headed for a wheelchair, I would be horrified by being trapped in that situation if no one listened to me. You did Jason a solid here by respecting his wishes. It's not like he could just leave. They wanted a captive audience regardless of him and his feelings. It's completely disrespectful. Not the a-hole. It seems like out of everyone, you are the only one who actually cares about Jason and his feelings. Everyone else just wants what's best for themselves, including your wife. I understand she wants her family back together, but this is not the way to do that. Her parents made their choice, and now they must live with the consequences. It's understandable that they couldn't take care of him, obviously being elderly. But to completely stop seeing him after a life-altering accident, they are way hauls for that. If Jason chooses to never see them, that is his choice, not theirs, and certainly not your wife. She's being completely selfish. Jason is lucky to have you in his corner. I think you made a right choice to slam the door on them. Now they know how it feels to shut someone off. They had a nurse helping them with all the heavy stuff. It was just that they were having a hard time adjusting to all the new changes. And yes, I get it takes time for something like this to become your new normal, but certainly not impossible. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole / are we the a-hole for not letting my boyfriend's mom put animals in our farm? I'm 20 female and my boyfriend is 21 male. We have been dating for over 2 years. Back in late 2019, we started renting a house together and the house happened to have a small farm. We didn't use the farm at first, but eventually we cleaned it up and put some sheep on there, and we have a sheepdog as well. My boyfriend's mom is in love with the idea of farming. However, their house doesn't have the capabilities to do that, but she often comes and visits our farm. When we got our sheep, she was going to buy a couple herself and keep up there, which we didn't really want to happen, but it never came to an actual idea, so it wasn't an issue. We got a calf a couple months ago and I fell in love with it. We bottle-fed it and raised it. However, it unfortunately passed away a few weeks ago from unknown causes. My boyfriend's mom bottle-fed it a few times as well. The other day, my boyfriend's mom was over here and asked if we would ever get another one. We told her possibly when it's a bit warmer, and one that was already off the bottle. She said, "Well, how about you all get one and I get one?" We told her we didn't really want to do that because a calf can be a lot of work and expensive, so we just wanted one. She got upset and said, "I will take care of it." And we said, "You're going to come up here every day and feed it and come in the middle of the night if it gets sick, etc." She got really quiet, and that was the end of it. My boyfriend's dad messaged us a couple days later and said his mom was really upset about it because she wanted a farm. He also said, "You were willing to let her get a sheep, why not a calf?" Sheep are not as much work as cows, and we never really let her get a sheep. That's fine, but this is our farm that we take care of. She wouldn't be the one taking care of her calf. It would more often be us unless she was up here, and we really don't want her up here every day even if she was willing to do that, which she's not. My boyfriend is with me on this completely as he knows he would be taking care of whatever his mom gets. Are we the a-holes here? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Seriously? She should be on her husband's butt about moving and getting a farm so much. Or be content with admiring your farm animals, for which I'm sure she can always visit on a sensible manner. Yeah, she clearly doesn't understand the pain of caring for these animals. Best if she buys her own farm and leave Vopi the hell alone. Not the a-hole. Livestock require care. Fencing, hay production or purchase, dewormer, counted every day so you can't find one if it's missing, grain purchases, salt and mineral blocks, and so much more. You don't just go, "I want a fluffy that someone else takes care of," unless you are paying board at the boarding facility, and that is usually pretty exclusive to horses and also usually $300 plus a month. She wants a farm. Her and her husband needs to figure out the move necessary, as in move to a farm, and do the work themselves. Not the a-hole in the context that she's being entitled and has no right to demand anything from you guys. But you can't just get a calf. It will be so lonely. Cattle are really social creatures, and no amount of human interaction will replace another bovine for company. Getting two would be much kinder to them, and if your boyfriend's mother is willing to pay for one and split costs with you, it might not be a terrible idea. Plus, it's a backup if you guys are out of town for whatever reason. The only reason we had our last calf is because it fell into our laps because it was a neighbor's and its mother rejected it. We have thought about getting two for ourselves, just not her having one. It would essentially be taking our resources, and if she were to sell it, then she would keep the profit when it has been our money keeping it going. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my stepdad financially after my mom passed, even though I'm well off? This is hard to write, but here goes. I, 34 female, lost my mom about a year ago. She had cancer, and watching her go through that was one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with. I loved her more than anything, and I still can't wrap my head around the fact she's gone. The grief has been unreal. Growing up, it was just me and her, until I was 13 when she married my stepdad, Frank. From the start, Frank made it clear he didn't want anything to do with me. He wasn't outright abusive, but the man made my life hell in other ways. He treated me like I was an unwanted guest in my own home. He didn't want to hear me, see me, or be bothered by me in any way. He never spoke to me unless it was to give me orders. Once I hit 14, he pretty much turned me into the household maid. I had to clean everything, do all the cooking, take care of the yard, run errands, you name it. He'd sit in his chair, watch TV, and treat me like his own personal servant. If I didn't do things fast enough to his liking, he'd criticize me. Say things like, "You're so useless. No wonder your dad left." Yeah, real nice, right? My mom always defended him, saying he worked hard and just tired. I loved her, but I'll never understand why she let him treat me like that. I moved out the second I turned 18 and barely looked back. Over the years, I've had next to no relationship with Frank. I only ever saw him because of my mom. Fast forward to a year ago when my mom passed, and now Frank's in serious financial trouble. Apparently, he didn't plan for anything, and they were barely scraping by. Now he's blowing up my phone, saying that since I'm doing well, I work in marketing and have done pretty well for myself, I should help him out with bills. He keeps talking about how I'm family and my mom would want me to take care of him. Here's where I might be the a-hole. I flat out told him no. I don't feel like I owe him anything. He made my life a nightmare and is only talking to me now because he wants something. I was nothing but an inconvenience to him growing up, and now he suddenly expects me to be the dutiful daughter and bail him out? I don't think so. But now he's calling me selfish and saying I'm dishonoring my mom's memory by abandoning him like this. I feel like he's trying to manipulate me, but then again, maybe I'm being too cold-hearted. He was married to my mom for 20 years, and I know she loved him. She would probably want me to help him, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Every time I think about giving him money, I get this anger inside me thinking about how he treated me when I was a kid. So am I the a-hole for refusing to help out my stepdad financially, even though I can afford to? Or am I being justified in cutting him off after everything he put me through? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are not obligated to help someone who mistreated you, even if they were married to your mom. Agreed. Frank treated Opie terribly growing up, and now he's only reaching out because he's desperate. You were not obligated to help someone who actively made your life miserable. Thank you. I was a servant a long time ago. Those times are gone. Don't even entertain this guy in his whinging. He made it clear you're not family to him, so take him at his word and block his number. She would probably want me to help him, but I just can't bring myself to do it. If that were the case, your mother should have had him treat you much better. I'm very sorry for the loss of your mother, but no, you are not the a-hole here. Basically, he brought this on himself by his negative behavior. Not the a-hole. This sounds like her mom made excuses for his awful behavior and didn't protect Opie. Not the a-hole. Block him and move on. I don't want to bash a deceased person, but her mom did not do well by her. I can't help but feel if she even did anything even minor for him, he'd show no damn appreciation toward her, and he probably would feel even more entitled. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my sister's kids to school after they've been bullying my son? A bit of background. My sister Sarah and her 2 kids, Jake 14 male and Mia 12 female, recently moved in with us after Sarah went through a rough divorce. She's been staying with us for about 6 months now, and we've tried to be as accommodating as possible. My wife Laura and I have 1 son, Ethan 13 male. At first, everything was fine, and the kids got along okay. Over the last few months, however, Jake and Mia have been making Ethan's life miserable. They've been teasing him constantly, calling him names and even going through his things when we're not around. It's been especially bad for Ethan because he's more introverted and quiet. He's come to us multiple times, upset about things they've said or done, and I've tried addressing it with Sarah. Her response has been pretty dismissive. It's just normal sibling stuff. They'll grow out of it. The tipping point came last week when Ethan told me that Jake had taken his school project, something he'd spent days working on, and ruined it by drawing all over it. Ethan was in tears. When I confronted Jake, he laughed it off like it was a joke. Sarah did seem to think it was a big deal and said Ethan was being too sensitive. Laura was furious but tried to stay calm. I finally had enough and told Sarah that if she couldn't keep her kids in check, I wasn't going to keep doing favors, like driving them to school every day. I've been taking all the kids to school since Sarah moved in because her car broke down and she hasn't been able to get it fixed. It's about a 20-minute detour for me, and I was happy to do it at first. But after all of this, I told her it was too much, and she needed to figure it out on her own. Now Sarah's upset, saying I'm punishing her and her kids over something small, and it's not fair for me to leave her stranded. She even went as far as to say I was being petty and holding a grudge against the kids. She thinks I'm overreacting, and should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. My wife is 100% on my side, and thinks Sarah's kids have been out of line for months. But now Sarah's giving me the cold shoulder and telling other family members that I'm being unreasonable. So am I the a-hole for refusing to drive them to school anymore? Overall, not the a-hole, but you only stated that you wouldn't drive them to school? Why the hell haven't you kicked them out? They are bullying your son. By ruining his school project, they're messing with his grades. What if that project is the difference between a pass and a fail? They are bullying him in his own home. Kick them out. And anyone who tells you you're being horrible and unfair, ask them when are they taking her in then. You're right. I think it is about time someone else takes them on as their burden. I've been doing this for long enough now, and she doesn't even seem as though she's trying hard to fix her situation. Why would she try? She's living, I assume, rent-free or at least reduced? You didn't say whether she's helping out financially at all. If she's not, why would she want to give up a free space to live with someone who is willing to ferry her kids around? Does she pay gas? I would have kicked her out too just to protect my son. This is crazy. Opie's son is being bullied at home and Opie needs to do something. I kind of want to go Opie is the a-hole, but not for refusing to drive the kids to school, but for not kicking out the abusive kids and the sister. I think you're the a-hole because you're imposing a penalty that doesn't do anything and doesn't mean anything. Refusing to drive her kids while they still live in the house is going to amp up hostilities. You need to tell Sarah that she has 1 week to get out. The end. You're right. I'm going to have to clear her out ASAP. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not changing the name chosen for my son because my sister who struggled to have a child wants it for hers? I'm 26 female, due in a couple of weeks with my first baby, a boy. And I already know when he'll be born because I have a C-section scheduled for medical reasons. So this is set in stone. We chose to name him after my husband's dad who died when he was a baby. This was something very important to him and therefore was important to me. This was decided early in my pregnancy but didn't get announced until my baby shower some weeks ago. We only let people know then because some wanted to personalize their gifts to us or add additional gifts with the name. My oldest sister, 36 female, is due late December/early January. This is also her first child after 12 years of infertility and struggling to conceive. Our middle sister, 34 female, was the first to have kids and has 5 now. She's also done having kids. For my oldest sister, watching our middle sister have kids so easily really hurt her. And I know their relationship struggled because my middle sister joked that she would carry a baby for my oldest sister and her husband, and she didn't say it as a joke at first. It was really hurtful to her. So there's some family tension there. I was disgusted by what our middle sister did too. They were always closest since they were only 2 years apart. I was never very close to either because of the bigger age gap. My oldest sister and I grew closer with our pregnancies, and she had told me she had a boy named picked out, but not a girl one yet because they had changed their mind about the girl's name they'd chosen. She asked if she could tell me when they decided on a girl name. I said of course. They found out they were having a boy a few days before my shower, but she decided to wait to tell me the name until after because she didn't want to take the focus off me. But then my son's name was announced, and it was the same name as the one they had chosen. She asked me afterward if we could find another name. She said she really wants her son to have his own special name, and they've had this name chosen for 10 years. I told her this is my late father-in-law's name and means so much to my husband. She told me she really doesn't want the cousins sharing a name. I said it could be worse. She left in tears and she went quiet for a while. But after a couple of weeks, she asked me again to please consider another name. I let my husband know what was going on, and we worked out something to say together. And then I communicated that we would not change the name. When she pushed, I pointed out my son would be born first, so it wasn't me stealing the name. She made it very clear how hurt she is, and how she feels like both me and our middle sister failed to understand all she's been through and lack compassion for her. I feel awful. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Cousins can have the same name. I assume they'll have different middle names and different last names. You can use first name, middle name, or first name, last name to distinguish them if they're together and you need to call to one of them. But realistically, how often will that happen? Or Sally's Ethan and Janny's Ethan if relatives are discussing the cousins. It's not that hard. Yes, different middle names for sure, and different last names. You're not the a-hole. Don't spend another minute worrying about it. Use the name you and your husband love and carefully chose. Info. How is offering to be a surrogate mother hurtful? But not the a-hole. Nobody owns a name, and cousins with the same name just happens. She will have to deal with it. It was a joke. She said it so it sounded serious. Got our oldest sister looking hopeful and then admitted it was a joke and she wouldn't do it. Oh, that is horrible. Yes, she did not sound like she was joking either. Had us all believing her, to then really show how little empathy she had. She was laughing it off too, like it was nothing. Last story. Am I the a-hole for demanding that my niece, or her parents, pay me back for the hundreds of dollars of perfume she stole from me? Note, I'm not involving the police, suing anyone, etc. Please don't try to argue with me about this or convince me why I should. I have a perfume collection that I started when I was a teenager slinging burritos as my first job. I have over 400 bottles at this point. I take great pride in my collection and I use it. I'm also happy to give people decants, samples, of most of my bottles. Let them sample a spray or two, give some bottles as gifts, etc. What I have a huge freaking issue with is my 17-year-old niece coming into my home under the guise of walking my dog, decanting bottles on her own, and selling the samples to her little friends. She thinks that because I have so many bottles, I wouldn't notice some missing or getting massive dents in them. Well, little Miss Entrepreneur failed to realize that our private Instagram wasn't friends only or whatever. And I saw each and every freaking story with each prize and sample she had. I tallied everything up and got a pretty good estimate based on cost per ounce. Thankfully, she mostly picked the TikTok famous perfumes and didn't go for the most rare niche perfumes. She did snatch an entire 2.5-ounce bottle of a certain brand though, which runs $300+ at most retailers, as well as full bottles of perfumes you can get at Sephora. Petty or not, I printed out the entire list of what she'd taken, price estimate, and handed it off to my sister, her mom. I said that I expect to be paid back, in full. And of course, her freaking sneaky little butt is never allowed in my home again. My sister got super pissy with me, going on about how my niece is just a kid. Kids make mistakes, etc. I said yes, kids make mistakes, and this is a great way for my niece to learn from hers. Their argument is that now the money she was going to use for a car has to go towards paying me back. I don't care. She's lucky that I have no interest in involving the police, small claims, or any of that. But am I the a-hole? Because she is a teenager. She's just a kid who created a successful business enterprise selling stolen property. Not the a-hole. This is part of what bugs me. If she had come to me and asked me if she could sell a handful of her friends some samples, I might have entertained the idea. I know getting samples for niche perfumes is a hassle. But nope, she screwed herself out of that one. This is a great way to learn. You are so right. This is a character-building core memory if she has consequences, not the a-hole by any measure. Next person might not let her off so easily. She has to learn the lesson now so it sticks. She might get juvie, community service, and made to pay, and it won't permanently affect her future. She gets away with this and pulls a similar stunt with someone else in a year or so, and she might end up in jail and with a record. You should be cruel to be kind. Not the a-hole. I can see from the fact that her mom considers a 17-year-old just a kid, as if she were a 5-year-old who stole a cookie before dinner, has caused her to act very entitled. She made a series of decisions to steal from you and profit from it. And she's either just a kid when she's stealing pricey scents, or she's an almost adult saving up for a car. Can't have it both ways on your dime. You'll be teaching her a better lesson than her mom bothered to. This teen is lucky the lesson only involves having to pay back what she stole instead of having charges pressed. OP's being nicer about this than a lot of people would. 17 is way too old to excuse stealing. If she tries this in less than a year with the wrong person, she will end up with a criminal record for the rest of her adult life. Info: since you didn't remove the physical bottles from your property, is it not considered theft? Is that why you won't involve the court or the law? No, she did take several full bottles. But it's not about that. It's about the consequences for other members of my family who have done nothing wrong. Info: what consequences would there be for other family members, and why? Life-altering consequences. I'm not comfortable sharing more than that. The negative outweighs the positive here. That makes zero sense. She stole so she should face consequences. Or are you more concerned with the embarrassment? Or family being embarrassed?
First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my stepmother at my wedding? I, 27 female, lost my mom on my first day of school. My dad remarried 3 years later to Jane. Jane could never have children of her own, so she, as well as my dad, thought that her marrying a man with a child so young would mean she would eventually become a mom. I admit that I have not allowed that to happen. Even at a young age, I did not want another mom, and so I put a wall between me and Jane because I never felt like there was a middle ground to make us happy. We have been through therapy, a bonding camp, which sucked by the way, and I would never recommend them, and a lot of serious conversations between the three of us. When I was 17, her efforts kind of ended because I invited my aunt, mom's sister, shopping for prom, and she was upset that it wasn't just for us. I got married 2 years ago. My fiancé's parents and my dad and stepmother were all giving speeches. Fiancé and I gave ours first. Fiancé talked about our future together and how he wished his brother had been there. He lost his brother 6 years ago. And then I talked about our future together and the sadness of hitting the milestone without my mom, but how much she would have loved my fiancé and would have been so proud to welcome him to the family. During my stepmother's speech, she went into a very heartfelt message about being a mom to me, etc. She talked about the joy I brought to her life and the fact she was proud to call me her daughter. It seems that it stuck out to everyone that I call her Jane during my speech when touching on her and my dad, and that I wasn't as loving toward her in mind that I was to my parents. Then back in October, when my wedding video was finally put up by the photography company, she told me I had humiliated her on my wedding day, and how it was a slap in the face for the video to be online for all the world to see. She told me that when I invited her to give a speech along with the other parents, that I had finally embraced her in a way I hadn't before. And to sit through my speech, where I didn't give her as much love as my dead mom when she had ridden her so lovingly, it made her want to run away and cry. I told her I was sorry to have made her feel that way, but she continued to bring it up. My dad then got involved, and he told me to fix things. I could always make a post to her next Mother's Day, giving her the love she deserves for everyone to see. It turned into a fight. Then at Christmas, when my mother-in-law posted what a beautiful speech it was and how she knew my mom would have been so proud of me, after that post was made, Jane told me I needed to apologize and to make amends for embarrassing her like that. I might normally do it just to save a fight, but I don't know where she thought we had gotten closer. I included her to be polite and respectful, and I have tried to be that more as I have gotten older. But I still don't feel anywhere close to the same as she does about me or how she wants me to feel about her. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She set herself up for embarrassment when she lied about the relationship she had with you. From your story, she knew well enough you did not see her as your mother, but she chose to write it anyway. The read I'm getting is that, by asking her if she wanted to do a speech, she took it was being treated as one of the parents, and thus I had accepted her as more. But if I hadn't asked her, they would have considered it cruel to snub her. So it looks like either way, I set to lose. Giving her that one kindness does not retroactively make your relationship one between a mother and daughter. Perhaps if her speech was about how you are beginning to accept her / relationship still growing, instead of an implication that you always saw her as mom. No a-holes here. I actually feel badly for her. Sounds like she really tried / wanted to be a good stepmom to you. It must have been very hard to live day in and day out with a stepkid who put up walls and never accepted or really liked her. And sounds like she was so excited when she thought about her asking to give a speech was a sign of your acceptance of her, which is actually kind of sad in itself. And she's just very hurt and has unleashed like 2 decades of feeling hurt. That said, you were a traumatized little girl, so I don't blame you. And your speeches were fine. I feel the exact same. Trying to establish a relationship with someone for 20 years and getting no reciprocation must be hard. She wanted to be a mom. I know this is where the whole thing comes from. She was unable to have children, and so when she married a widower with a young child, she thought it would be her chance. She could finally be a mom after years of wanting it. And I'm sure another kid would have loved that someone wanted to be their mom and consider them her kids. I wasn't that kid though. My dad was the man for her, but I was not the kid for her. And I don't really blame her for wanting it. But I will never be the person to give it to her, and I don't think she will ever be able to truly not want that mother / daughter relationship. Not a a-hole. I hate step-parents that think they can just replace kids' actual parents regardless of what the child wants. I'm sorry for your loss, OP. Your dad is the a-hole for letting another woman try to replace your mom. I understand it sucks not to be able to have children, but that doesn't give your stepmom the right to waltz in and try and make you play a perfect family and forget your mom. She's also major a-hole for complaining about you missing your dead mom at your wedding. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my husband and his family to suck it up when they complained about my daughter's wedding? I won't complicate this. I have a daughter, Kara, who is not my biological daughter, nor was she my legal daughter until she reached the age of 18 when she asked me to adopt her as an adult. I married my husband when she was 14 and together we have 2 children. Kara gets along okay with my husband, but admittedly, her upbringing means she was maybe not as able to bond with a father figure as she was with a mother figure, and her age was also a factor. Regardless, everyone gets along, and I think that is the best you expect when you have someone who went through as much as she did at a young age. Kara is engaged and came to me recently and told me she would like to walk with me down the aisle and do a dance with me while her fiancé dances with his mom. She told me she didn't know how to ask for that without hurting my husband. I told her he would understand and I would be honored to do it. I did not expect my husband and his parents to take offense. They believe she snubbed my husband and is making it seem like he's nothing. After listening to them complain about this for 10 minutes, I told them to suck it up and accept that she asked me, her mom, to do both of those parts of the wedding and that I was proud to do it. I dared them to tell me I was less deserving than my husband. My husband and his parents believe I wasn't very understanding and downright rude, according to my mother-in-law. Am I the a-hole? So to clarify for people because I was not clear, my husband is not her father. He is her stepfather through me. I was married before and she was my stepdaughter who I ended up with custody of, but never legally adopted as a minor because her biological mother was alive. She has trauma relating to father figures, 2 prior ones to be exact, so she has never really considered my husband as such. But their relationship has been good considering everything she has been through. I did adopt her when she turned 18. Not my husband, just me. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. You're doing everything right, and I think it's lovely that she wanted you to walk her down the aisle. It's a testament to your relationship with her. It seems clear to me why she wouldn't want him. He doesn't behave as a parent, so why would he stand in as her father? Not a-hole. Congratulations. So excited for you. Of course you're not. It's her wedding. There's no snubbing. She wants you. Period. Kara is engaged and came to me recently and told me she would like to walk with me down the aisle and do a dance with me while her fiancé dances with his mom. Not a-hole. This is beautiful. Good job, Mom. Not a-hole. What a pity party. Call the ambulance. Lol. Reminds me of Lily from Modern Family. Not a-hole. Info. Did you just adopt her or did you and your husband both adopt her? Not that it makes a difference. I'm just curious. Bottom line is, she can ask whomever she wants to walk her down the aisle. It's no one else's damn business. When it's their wedding, they can be in charge of it. Just me. Next story. Am I the a-hole for spending my dad's money on a trip with my aunt instead of stepmom? A light insight. I, 17 female, lost my mom this year, early April. My parents divorced when I was really young, but I've kept in touch over the years with my dad to ask for financial help with the schools, trips, etc. Other than that, he told both my mom and I not to keep in touch unless necessary. Ever since my mom's passing, I've been living with my dad. I don't know the details, but my mom and dad never had a friendly relationship, and I could tell my dad really didn't like her. But to me, she was my single working mom, and I really miss her. My dad's new wife, my stepmom, is okay, but she acts a bit tense around me and tries too hard. I don't think she likes my mom either, since she tells me to stop when I talk about her. I feel like my dad is pushing for us to get close, but I don't see that happening since I barely know either of them well enough. Plus, I'll always only have one mom. Here's where the problem starts. Back when I used to live with my mom, she used to work tons of shifts, get barely any rest, and work her damn hardest for me. I wanted to surprise her with a surprise vacation or a small trip for her to relax, but we couldn't afford it, so I started asking my dad for money every few weeks, saying I needed it for extracurricular courses. When I finally had enough, my mom passed away, and I started living with dad and stepwife. I still had the trip money left over, so I called in my aunt, mom's sister, to come with me for the trip. I don't know how, but my dad found out about the money I've collected and got really angry, but said he'd forgive me if I went on the trip with stepmom. Obviously it didn't, and left with my aunt when he was away at work. My aunt and I had a blast on our small road trip, stayed at a motel, and basically just toured around in big wide open spaces. As a city child, I had a lot of fun in the countryside. When I came back, Dad was really mad and took away all my devices and grounded me, calling me an a-hole for not choosing to go with stepmom and using his money like a thief. I know what I did was lying about my courses and taking his money was wrong, but was it wrong of me to go with my aunt? She really reminds me of my mom, and I missed her so much. My dad, his wife, and extended family found out and are calling me a petty thief and a liar. My stepmom has started ignoring me in the house too, and everyone keeps telling me to apologize. But I don't see where I did wrong with going with my aunt who I feel closer to. Now for the top comments. Not a a-hole. While the way you went about getting the money to finance the trip was not exactly kosher, you had every right to decide who to take with you. You chose to take someone you know and love, someone who is a close connection to your mother. The fact that you aren't close with your father/stepmother is their own fault. He was the one who chose to only support you financially and not emotionally, so he has only himself to blame. Is there a way for you to get out of their house? Could you live with your aunt? They're emotionally abusing and isolating you because you didn't cower to their demands, and that is not okay. It could get worse. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you. I want to get out too, but I don't think my dad will allow it. Plus, my aunt is struggling financially, so I don't want to be a burden on her. I plan to move out and become independent when I can, though. Not a-hole because you are a kid and just lost your mother and have been forced to live with people who are practically strangers. I'm appalled the adults in your life are not giving you some grace for that fact. Listen, it was wrong to lie about the extracurricular stuff. I know that, you know that. But your heart was in the right place. And where else would you go for the money? And most importantly, you're a kid. A kid who wanted to help her mom. So was it a dumb choice? Yes, it was. Does it make you an a-hole? Not at all. Your dad, on the other hand, is a huge and massive a-hole. He clearly neglected you your whole life. Don't keep in touch unless necessary. What the hell is that? Even now that you're living with him, that does not make him some hero all of a sudden, since he's basically emotionally neglecting you now. You just lost your mom, and since you're living with him and not someone else, she was likely everything to you. And he is being extremely immature and selfish about this trip and the money. If he was a real parent, he'd understand and try to help you. And the stepmom is no better, ignoring you because you did not go on a trip with her. A grieving kid who just lost her mom. These people are so selfish and can't get their heads out of their own ass to act like a family. I know you're not asking for advice, but is there any way you can stay with your aunt? Everyone sucks here. Your dad sounds a little bit authoritarian, so good luck. But you shouldn't have lied about the reason why you need the money, and his reasoning probably is that he gave you money for a specific reason, and he can determine what that reason is now since you lied about it. He could have even told you to give the money back. Now, for the last story, am I the a-hole for not allowing my girlfriend's daughter in my car or my son's? My girlfriend, Sally, and I live together with our teenage children, Dan and Grace. Both kids are 16, with about a month separating their ages. Dan is my biological child, and while Grace and I have a decent relationship and I love her, her father is definitely still in her life, so I can't say I've had a fatherly role. Sally and I split the cost of living by percentages as I make more, and though we've been together 5 years, we have no plans to wed or coming for finances. I hope that's enough backstory. If it's not, please ask for info, and I'll do my best to answer. This past year, both teens were due to get their license and take a big step forward in their lives. The issue came from my opinion being that Grace wasn't ready for that responsibility. I felt Grace would call her safety or other safety into question on the road. I only shared this with her mother in private at first. However, her mother asked that I share my concerns with everyone, so I did. It caused some headaches and accusations. However, I based it on Grace's daily life and not on a comparison to Dan. Grace is a smart child, but lacks an attention span, ignores her chores, and struggles in school. Yes, she's been tested for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and other things, and has been caught sneaking out at night. Ultimately, it didn't matter and Grace was able to get her license. Well, 3 weeks into having her license, Grace has totaled her mother's car by hitting a telephone pole while texting a friend. Grace is still bruised from it, but is otherwise healthy, and asking to use mine or my son's car, which I have shut down 100%. My ex and I bought my son his car, and while it's nothing fancy, it's his. I'm now being accused of playing favorites, being sexist, and rubbing my income into their faces due to Dan having his own car. It's escalated, and I've told Sally I don't feel comfortable with Grace driving as I think she's going to hurt someone or herself again. Am I the a-hole here? I understand getting your license is a big deal, but if you're not ready, you're not ready, right? And didn't compare the kids to one another. I'm just judging each for their actions. Where did I go wrong? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I think only one fact about Grace is relevant here. She totaled a car texting while driving. Yes, you saw it coming. Yes, she only had her license 3 weeks when it happened, but those facts are irrelevant. Anyone who loans a car to someone who just totaled a car by texting and driving is just asking to have their car totaled. It would be beyond idiotic to let her drive a car you're financially responsible for. Why would anyone, especially her parents, want her back out on the road? Do they want her to get hurt or kill someone? I literally don't understand how her actual parents just don't seem to give a damn about her health. Not the a-hole. Ask Sally how wanting her daughter alive is playing favorites or being sexist. Great response. Not the a-hole. She was texting and driving. She crashed. She shouldn't be allowed to drive until she buys her own car. It sounds simple enough to me. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.